The one thing that could not happen just took place. Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State fall to Tulsa. Yes, Tulsa from the American Athletic Conference, 19-12 in Stillwater, Oklahoma. I don't see, I don't see the other side of this deal for Mike Gundy in Oklahoma State. This is crazy.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yeah, we're going live after this because, ironically enough, Oklahoma State decided to have a blackout against Tulsa on a Friday night. And I know that the blackout thing was decided before the season started, and it would have been very difficult to assume that Oklahoma State was going to be this bad when we decided to black out this game. But fittingly, everybody wore all black to Boone Pickens Stadium for what may have been the funeral procession of some sorts for Mike Gundy in Oklahoma State. Yeah, the 66-point loss to Oregon is technically the worst loss since 1915 when Oklahoma State lost 77-0 to Northwestern Oklahoma State. So 1915 to Oregon, it didn't really look this inept. This is an Oklahoma State team that may not be competitive with anybody. This Oklahoma State team may not even be competitive in the American. I don't see how Mike Gundy gets out of this one. And I've been talking about how it would be an ideal scenario for Mike Gundy to go out, on top, and we could build a statue and he could be the hero. And I don't see how that's possible anymore because this is absolutely egregious. This is a criminal offense to lose to Tulsa. The first loss since 1998, the first loss at home to Tulsa since 1951. All of the conversations that Tulsa was discussing before the season and how about they could recruit with Oklahoma State and have NIL like Oklahoma State, and they could be just like an Oklahoma State or a Kansas State, at least in that perspective. And then you watch Oklahoma State get the best players in the state of Oklahoma. I mean, and we're going to elaborate on that here in a minute, but it's a black eye. We were a blackout, and this has got to be rock bottom. In Mike Gundy's first year, 2005, we won 4 games, and even the games that we lost, we still had some fight. We still looked competent at times. We still looked capable at times. We even knocked off a top 25 Texas Tech team. And it's still theoretically possible that this team could end up being something and beating somebody in the top 25. But as we discussed at certain times throughout the course of the week, when you bring in Noah Walters, it kind of accentuates to the point that in order to get Haas Haney back on the roster for Oklahoma State this season, you're going to have to go on some semblance of a run. So you're going to need to be 4-1, 5-1, 6-2 style of an equation before it's even manageable for Haas Haney to get into the ball game. Because unfortunately, this is a business decision. And part of him getting injured was because of the ineptitude at the offensive line. We got used and abused today like a redheaded stepchild by Tulsa's defensive line. Like, we knew Tulsa had a good O-line, so it was going to be a pretty good test for our defensive linemen. But it was more than a test. It was a class. They put on the class. We were the ones taking the lessons. So we have this SEC staff, and I fully believed in it. I thought that Todd Grantham was going to bring these group of dudes all over from 2015 Mississippi State to Florida to Bama to wherever else, including stops in the NFL. And it was instantly going to mean something different this season. And then we go out and we get some of the big-time helmet sticker dudes in the transfer portal. And it equals nothing. You could make the argument, no, you have to make the argument that this team's worse than last year. That's why it's rock bottom. That's why it's almost irredeemable at this point in time. And I'm trying not to hammer the rails over this thing, but this is as bad as it gets. right? We were talking about Oregon and it being the first loss of that kind since X, Y, or Z. And now you got to go back to 2000, 1998, now 1951, 1917 is the next comparison, or 1915 to the loss to Oregon. We're going the wrong way. And I mean, it's sad, of course. We all gave TCU a hard time when Gary Patterson had the statue put up, or it was put up during the season, right? So the guy gets a statue put up, and then they boot him in the middle of the season. They're having a pretty good year thus far. They instantaneously got to go play for a national championship. That definitely not to say that's going to happen in Stillwater, Oklahoma. But, there's always been a common sentiment that you cannot get rid of Mike Gundy because it physically possibly, can never get better than Mike Gundy. But eventually you reach the bottom of an endless pit, and it kind of feels like that's where we are. Because at least Oregon is a bona fide certified top 5 team. Oregon did go 13-0 last year in the regular season, last season as well. So there's a little bit of cachet to taking an absolute butt whooping by Oregon, at least somewhat provides. There is none anymore. A loss to Tulsa is as bad as it gets. I mean, we were having this kind of doldrums conversation just recently when we lost to South Alabama. But this is worse. Why is this worse? Because this has ramifications that go far beyond just the X's and O's, just the staff, just the players on the roster. This has ramifications that go deeper than that. Congratulations, Dominic Richardson. It was nice to see him come back home to Stillwater, Oklahoma, that the house that he grew up at. And he beat the tar out of us. Dominic Richardson clearly ran like a man possessed. He was on a mission to prove that it was a mistake for Oklahoma State to ever let him go. But, I mean, you have to think back. We did have Ollie Gordon, so it's not exactly as if Dominic Richardson was going to have a big role. But nonetheless, it was really cool to see him do this with a Tulsa jersey on inside Boone Pickens Stadium. I was hoping that him and Braylon Presley would both have nice days, but they would lose. 1998 to now. This is crazy. Just like after the Oregon loss, we discussed how some of the old school individuals that did always have that mentality of you can never get better than Gundy. So no matter what happens, you can't get rid of Gundy. I think that a lot of people are realizing after this one, you're kind of already at the bottom. And it doesn't appear as though there's a whole lot of signs for hope. There's not a whole lot of evidentiary proof that says that there's some level of trajectory that is positive moving forward. So just like we discussed, having to win a little series of games here before Haas Haney could potentially make the business decision to come back and play, whether it be week 6, 7, 5, whatever. It feels kind of out the window now. The fact that Wendell Gregory started the season against UTM, giving glimmers of hope, seems kind of pointless now. And it's hard to look at the roster and think, well, what portion of these players are going to be useful next season? And what portion of these players do we need to try to hang on to make sure that we have something positive moving forward for next season? Whether it's going to be with Gundy or without. But as we all know, as we've all seen from the Reuben Foster situation at UCLA, anytime you have this level of turmoil, there's going to be problems. It's going to be hard. Here, we'll throw some comments up here. Sorry. Large bad man, yikes. How do I get on the show? Well, it's not like I just, jump on the funsies style of an equation here. There's so many comments. It's going to be hard to keep track. So I'll just keep cruising along here. Matter of fact, let's get to another segment here. I'm all out of sorts. But before we do that, ladies and gentlemen, I do have to do a quick Mazda read. It's time for you to move and be moved by Mazda. The craftsman and everything that Mazda puts into their vehicles is going to be exceptional for you, to get down the road. Have the experience. Sometimes you need to get out and have the drive of a lifetime or escape just for an hour or two. Maybe some of us would like to escape at this very moment. Regardless, make sure that you get squared away today with Mazda because they do have everything that you need to move and also be moved. So we're just going to keep moving fairly quickly into this thing. The recruiting aspect of this is a disaster, right? There was reports that there was tons of recruits there today. Numerically, maybe it was 30, maybe it was 20, maybe it was 15, maybe it was 10. Maybe it doesn't matter because I don't see how anybody could be at that ball game and feel insanely excited about the prospect of doing something for Oklahoma State this upcoming season. Yeah, there's going to be some guys that want to be part of the new age and the regalvanization of Oklahoma State football and trying to get the Cowboys back to where they're supposed to be. But if you're Katie Batman Jones or Taj Overton or Trey McLaughlin, it's really difficult to look at this ball game and to be there or to see that environment and to feel the life get sucked out of the building pretty quickly on. And it's not just that we lost, right? Losing to Tulsa, yes, it's embarrassing. Yes, it should never happen. Yes, it's problematic. Yes, it's going to hurt recruiting. But it's not even that. It's the way that we lost. Like, they controlled 95% of the game, maybe 90% of the game. And the percentage of the game that they did control, it was never even really all that close. Yeah. I don't know what to make of it. But I knew it's going to be difficult to hold on to this recruiting class, which is an absolute shame because clearly the Todd Granthams and the Corey Pattersons and the Jules Montanars, the guys that I was so thrilled about for the season, they've proven that they can recruit pretty darn well. They've proven that they can recruit the best talent in the state of Oklahoma, and they can push OU out of the way when it comes to recruiting some of the heavy hitters in the state. But for what? Right? And we'd even discussed how there was going to be prove-it moments throughout the course of the season. So if Oklahoma State's recruiting class was going to get even better, it was likely to be predicated upon the success that we had this year. So if Oklahoma State was going to get back to where we're supposed to be, where we're used to being, that 8, 9, 10 win range, if we were to get back in that realm, then this recruiting class with the Taj Overtons and the Katie Batman Jones and the Aiden Martins and the Trey McLaughlins and the Carter Langdovers, that class could get bigger. It could get better on top of Danny Bill, right? Number one player in the state of Oklahoma, number one player in the state of Arkansas, number one running back, number one linebacker. We had all of those guys lined up. And it's still possible. It's still theoretically, definitely possible that we could reel the rest of this class in. Just like it's possible that Oklahoma State could move on and somebody could come in and regalvanize a decent portion of the recruiting class. A ton of things are possible, but now we have to look at probabilities. And the probability at this moment is we're stuck like Chuck in a bad spot. And I don't think it does any good to, sit here and bash my Gundy, but it is at least fair to acknowledge the situation is inescapably disastrous. How does Mike Gundy recover from this? I mean, I guess if you beat Baylor and then you beat Houston and then you beat Arizona, maybe, sure, yeah. Then it's just a little bit of a feather in the cap for Tulsa. But adding validity to the fact that Mike Gundy is so far behind the 8 ball in this new landscape of college football has never been more visible than what we just witnessed. And once again, Tulsa just beating us. They physically were better than we were. a large portion of the time they looked faster. They looked more athletic. They looked more physical. They looked more sure of themselves. They had more creativity offensively. They had more capabilities defensively. So we're supposed to believe that we went out and spent at least a little bit more in NIL, at least a significant amount more in NIL. And we went and got guys from the LSUs, from the Tennessees, from the Floridas, from the UCLAs. And most of them aren't even playing. Like the big name, heavy hitter recruit or transfers that we got, most of them don't even play. So, I mean, we went and spent money on what? And then the guys that we know aren't really making a whole lot because they're returning or they're clearly special teams only or backups. Well, what's the point of not playing them then? Because the guys with the fancy helmet stickers that used to be consensus 4-star All-Americans, we've even got a couple 5-star dudes, and nothing's working. The body by glass methodology that has put Oklahoma State into the upper echelons of collegiate football just because of the strength and conditioning, it doesn't exist. We got bullied around and pushed around by Tulsa. Mother trucking Tulsa. So, I mean, again, hats off to them. They played well. It was an admirable effort. It's cool for them. But this is also a gut check. This is also a realization moment for anybody that was still kind of hanging on the edge of where Oklahoma State should go from here. At least we know it looks pretty obvious that we cannot continue to go in this direction. The ideal scenarios of Mike Gundy having a magical, mythical, off into the sunset season doesn't appear possible. And again, even the crowd of individuals that forever and a day said that Oklahoma State will never do better, they can never do better, it makes no sense to ever even move in that direction. I think even those individuals have to see now that this is different. This is a different time. This is a different landscape. We do not understand the lay of the land at the moment. Right? We may know how it's done. We may know how it happens at other schools, other places, other universities. But it's not happening here. And so if we're to have any opportunity to give ourselves a chance of being competitive again anytime soon, it's time to take the gloves off. All right, because and we'll be somewhat quick with this. I'll do another show Sunday, but yeah, we had to get something out quickly. I'm almost at a loss for words. However, we got to do it. We got to duct tape this thing back together. Yeah, there's no way we get Haney back. I just don't see it. Right, the rest of the season's going to be duct tape, and not just based off of injuries. And another down part of this, right? I've seen some people discuss, like, potentially firing Mike Gundy midseason. I don't see how it's possible. Again, we might have to duct tape this thing together, but even if you were to entertain the idea of firing Gundy Mike season, even if he's earned it and deserved it, and we're at that moment, who are you going to hand the keys to? Our offense is terrible, as Charles Barkley would say. So it's not like you're going to hand the keys to Doug Meacham. Our defense is pretty bad. Maybe not Charles Barkley level terrible, but they're pretty bad. So you can't exactly hand the keys off to Todd Grantham. You bring in 3 former Cowboy alumnus to run the offensive line, and Cooper Bassett and Grant Gardner and Andrew Mitchell. You can't hand the keys to them. Like there's no coaches to intern the keys to. That's one of the biggest problems. At least sometimes you fire somebody and hand the keys off to the young up and coming defensive coordinator. But that's not the case in Stillwater. Our defense coordinator was probably looking at this opportunity as his last chance to prove that he could be a head coach. at the Power 4 level. Well, you might want to kiss that goodbye. Right. Correct, Blanket. It probably can't get worse. I mean, there is still going to be some people, because I did see it on socials, on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. There were still a couple people that were like, well, we can't get rid of Gundy because look at Nebraska. And they got greedy and they got selfish, and they got rid of an all-time legendary coach, and they've been terrible since, which is true. I mean, but their standards are a little different. We need to have high standards at Oklahoma State, but we weren't having national championship standards. But the crazy part about the Oregon game is not too long ago, we could have competed with any team in the country. We could have competed with a team that could win the Natty. Does that always mean we were going to win? No. But Oklahoma State never, ever, now, not a never, could have gotten drugged through the mud by 66 points like we did against Oregon. And you know what? One of the things that probably isn't going to get mentioned enough, so I'll mention that before I try to squeeze on out of here, is this was off of a bye week. So not only did we begin the season with week 0, we got a couple extra days to prepare for Oregon, and that was a disastrous nightmare. And then we get a bye week to prepare for Tulsa, and we lose. So we had extra time to prepare for Oregon. Didn't matter. Okay, I get it. Then we have essentially some extra time to some degree to prepare for Tulsa off of the bye week. And what was that graphic that was put up going into the third quarter? 25 punts or something to that effect. 2 picks. Yeah. It's going to be a long season. And you know what? I have some people to basically apologize to, because I was not only drinking the orange Kool-Aid, all right, but I was disseminating it out so proudly that I just knew that all of these players from the LSUs and the Ohio States and the UNLV or UCLAs and Floridas and the SEC staff and the NFL coaches, I believed in all of it, hook, line, and sinker. The Zane train, I figured, had to be something legitimate, because we got rid of Garrett Rangel, who had experience. We got rid of Milwaukee Smith, who had experience. Say what you want about them, but I don't think any of us could legitimately look at the product we're seeing now offensively and say that Garrett Rangel and Milwaukee Smith were worse than this. Like, I hate to even speak begrudgingly about Zane Flores, because I love the concept of the Zane train. I love the fact that he's been loyal to us, and we rewarded his loyalty with this. But it's a nightmare. This is a nightmare of a scenario. This is the worst case, the worst thing that could have happened. So again, this is rock bottom. There's not another game on the schedule that we could lose by any amount that equals losing to Tulsa. I mean, for the umpteenth time, congrats to Tulsa. Good game plan. Athletically, you have talent. But this is indefensible. This is indefensible. And the biggest shit kicker part of all of it is that we cannot do the interim thing, because there's nobody to look to on this coaching staff as the shining light. Like, even positionally speaking, find me a position that we're excelling enough at to say, okay, well, if you did fire Mike Gundy midseason, you could hand the keys to flipping who? We don't even have an actual athletic director right now. This is a mess. This is an absolute mess. I don't know how Mike Gundy recovers from this. I don't know how we even spread enough positivity to get through the flipping season. I mean, why not throw the new dude, Noah Walters, right? He's been here for a couple weeks. I hate that for Zane, but I mean, flipping A, Cotton, like do something. Yeah, yeah. I never thought we'd be here. I didn't think it was possible. Like I've railed on Gundy a couple times after the Spencer Sanders sagas. It was really when some of the animosity began. But even in my railings of Gundy then, never, ever, ever did I see this coming. Never did I think that I'd be doing a live show discussing a loss to Tulsa. I almost cursed. Never did I think I'd be discussing a loss to Tulsa on this show. So, like, I don't know what to get excited about. I don't know what to look at in this game and say, all right, well, we got Baylor coming up, and because we did this good in the Tulsa game, maybe we have a chance against Baylor. I really don't know, because extra days for Oregon didn't do anything. A bye week with a ton of extra time for Tulsa didn't do anything. We have no offensive creativity. We have nobody that can take the top off of the defense. We have nobody seemingly with reliable hands. Zane Flores can't get enough time to throw the ball. When he does get enough time, he feels like he's dodging ghosts out here, so he throws it to the turf. I mean, even our trick play was ugly as all get out, and it almost equaled like a 6-yard loss. So the trickeration cute stuff that UT Martin did to score on us, we can't even do that. And like it's hard to feel bad for Gundy, because he has admitted to some things, like, putting us in this position just from the standpoint of he thought NIL would be a flash in the pan. It would go away pretty quickly. It wouldn't stick around very long, that things would even themselves back out, and that we could go right back to doing the things that we did for 20 years that made him one of the best coaches statistically with wins in the country. But we were too slow to get involved with the portal market. We were too slow to get involved with NIL. We were too slow to find investments. We were too, soft to go push more donors, to do more things. People tend to forget that before Mike Holder, it's not exactly like we were doing a bunch, right? I don't know a lot about Terry Don Phillips, but Mike Holder was the visionary that went and tracked down Boone Pickens and convinced Boone Pickens to not only spend, but do something absolutely insane. Now you got West Virginia talking about having a collective of donors that all put their heads together and find a way to be at the top of the Big 12, if not number one, number two. And Texas Tech, clearly they're finding ways of investment so they don't go backwards. KU gets a $300 million investment from Booth on top of a brand new stadium. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. So either Oklahoma State cannot raise money anymore at all, which I don't buy. I don't believe that. Or the people that have the funds just will not give it to us. Okay, so what is the reason for that? It has to be something to do with football, because what Mike Gundy says is true. Football is the front porch of your university. If football is good, then every other sport's going to have the ability financially to also be good. But if your football team is absolute dog water, it makes everything more difficult. It makes enrollment more difficult, profitability, marketability. It's insane that we're here. It's insane that we're at this spot and having this conversation. But we're not magically going to catch up. And it does, unfortunately, now feel like we should be catering the rest of the season towards homecoming being all 100% about Mike Gundy. So homecoming, make every frat, everything, every sorority, every float about Mike Gundy and the legacy, because he is the GOAT. He is the legend. But this is a different spot. I do need to take a breath and get some decent sleep. Yeah, that's probably fair. That's probably fair. Yeah. We're all going to wake up tomorrow and we're going to think that this was a nightmare and that it's no big deal because tomorrow is college football Saturday. But I'll be honest with you, I'm conflicted, right? I don't even know if I want to watch college football tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to have the heart to sit down in front of football and be excited about much of it. I could tell you almost every Big 12 game I'm going to watch. You know what? Actually, I might watch UCF because if we're going to be able to win a game this year, it might be UCF. But see, that's on the road, so even that's problematic. I don't know. Maybe I'll drink. Yeah, I don't know. Anywho, guys, we will do another episode probably Sunday. We've got to find some positives somewhere in this game. There was some positives. Everyone's going to do some overreaction after that, but it's, in my opinion, not overreacting to say this was the worst case scenario and this was the last thing that Mike Gundy needed. There's no doubt that there's for sure some donors that were making phone calls during that game, during maybe even before halftime. There's got to be a pool of money already put together off of just the Oregon game and tonight. Maybe it's not enough. Yeah, it's not over. It's not overreaction. I feel like I'm being fairly calm, given the circumstances. Bring back Pat Jones. Why not? Somebody said J.W. Walsh. Okay, you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. All right, if we're going to give the interim thing away, might as well give it to JW. I don't think we can get worse, guys. Heck, I made jokes about me having the ability to run against the Baylor defensive line. I may have had success against our D line tonight as well, and that's unimpressive. All right, y'all. Anywho. Yeah, go drink one, and then we'll all reconvene and pretend that this day didn't happen. All right, y'all. As always, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for jumping on this emergency. I'm gonna freak out session. Alrighty, yeah. Later, Wet. Later, Mick. Later, guys.